All right, sorry about the long delay. There was some issues. Let's go ahead and take a look into this. If you guys do not know, there was a release of new patches, or a release of a new patch for Heart of the Swarm, patch 11, and it is a doozy. I read a couple of the lines and then I thought to myself, I should really be making a video on this. So let's go down the list. Now, the first things first, Terran got a number of changes that really surprised me. We'll have to go ahead and take a look at them one at a time. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this high definition video, even though it is just a wall of text. And let me tell you my thoughts. Barracks. Reapers no longer need the Tech Lab add-on. That may sound like an absolute huge buff. It is, but you also need to take into consideration what else is in this patch. So just hear me out. Second thing, Hellbat. Attack speed has been changed from 1.9 to 2. This is one of those things that I wasn't really aware of for Hellbats, that Hellions and Hellbats actually had different firing rates. I believe the firing rate on a Hellion is 2.4 right now, and a Hellbat is 2, so the Hellbat does still attack slightly faster. Now, next thing to note, Infernal Pre-Igniter no longer increases the damage of the Hellion. Now this may sound like a very bad nerf, but then there's also a damage buff for the Napalm Spray weapon. Instead of doing 10 plus 9 versus light, it is now doing 18 plus 12. So the instant you get an armory, you can increase the damage significantly on those Hellions. So you're going to be thinking to yourself, wow, that's a lot of damage. But then at the same time, the splash damage radius has now been decreased from 110 to 45. So I'm not quite sure how to even calculate all of this in my head at the same time. This was rather strange. I'm just trying to figure out everything and just trying to go through all the scenarios. This is going to be one of those patches that I will be playing in order to get a better feel. Now, Metavax, the Caduceus reactor, it no longer improves the healing rate of Metavax. Now, this was a huge, important fix for Metavax. What players were often finding was that the Metavax were healing much more quickly than intended. So now the healing rate is the same. The rate of efficiency on healing of the Metavax is just improved now. So Metavax should not run out of energy nearly as often after the Caduceus reactor has been researched. A little bit, emergency thruster is now renamed to Ignite Afterburners. No real balance issues there whatsoever. Now, moving on. No, I do not want you to update Java. Moving on. The Raven Seeker Missile, this was something that I've been waiting for quite some time. With feedback being such a prominent spell, Seeker Missile was never very useful. Now, the Seeker Missile energy cost has been decreased from 125 to 75, and it doesn't require research. If you remember, that was a prior patch. The primary target damage has been reverted from 300 down to 100, so when they say reverted, this means that it is the same spell as before. Alright, so the same damage as before. Seeker Missiles once again deal splash damage, and now there is a delay timed prior to firing has been increased from 3 to 5 seconds. That means that this is much more dodgeable. 5 second is really about a 3.75 seconds in real time as opposed to StarCraft time. That is a dodgeable Seeker Missile as long as you are paying attention. In large fights, it may not be worth it and actually to pull back and try to move around. Now, finally, the Reaper changes. Huge changes here. Battle awareness passive ability has been removed from the game. Reapers can no longer look before they leap. That was a huge advantage for Reapers, being able to scout and actually shoot up onto high ground when there were Zerglings there. So Reapers may not be as strong. I'll have to experiment with them a little bit. The movement speed has been increased even further from 3.38 to 3.75. This is a nerf buff. This is balancing at its best. Trying to make the Reaper stronger while not making it broken. The reason why the increase was there is, one, they removed the nitro packs, and two, with the awareness ability gone, they needed to be able to get out of dodge faster. They need to be able to get out of harm's way faster. That is about a 10% movement speed increase. So be aware of that. Reapers will be moving slightly faster. But then here is one of the biggest changes. The Gauss pistol weapon damage decreased from 9 damage versus light to simply 4. So the bonus versus light has been removed. That means that Reapers are only dealing 8 damage per attack. You won't notice much of a difference if you're going up against, say, queens or roaches, but fighting against zerglings, and more specifically fighting against other reapers, marines, and workers, you will find a very big difference. Finally, the siege tank gets the upgrade that was pretty much a long time coming. Siege tanks without siege mode was just one of the things that made me scratch my head. You rarely ever wanted to use a siege tank out of siege mode, since the Marauder was essentially the same exact thing, except for it was bio and had stim. Siege tanks, if you compare it back to Brood War, siege tanks were less supply, less gas, and did more damage. So I know it is comparing two separate games, but at least on stat paper, the siege tanks being able to have siege mode the instant they are out is a definite boost. Being able to hold off early aggressions such as the Mothership Core stalker pushes that have become very common. Moving on, Protoss. The Vortex ability has been removed from the game completely. All right, that surprises me a bit. The Vortex ability being removed, that means the Mothership is simply there for its cloaking field, I believe, and the mass recall ability. I'm concerned. I think maybe the Mothership needs to be able to move a little bit faster now that the Vortex ability has been removed. And we'll have to take a look into the balancing of that, especially in PvZ, where Archon Toilet and large swarms of army are so critical. The Mothership Core, the Envision ability has been moved to the Oracle. That is very, very important. The Mothership Core having detection was perhaps a little bit too strong in the early portion of the game, being able to spot Widow Mines. And I don't think any other race gets detection from just their Cybernetics core. It would be like having a barracks with a tech lab being able to have a caster that had detection. That was just a little bit too strong, especially when you're trying to make Widow Mines more viable as a defensive measure against Blink Stalker play. So I like the idea. Oracles now having detection, it gives Protoss 2 routes to get detection. One in terms of the Observer, obviously, and 2 of the Oracle. That means that Protoss now the only route that they cannot get detection is if they go down the Twilight Council tech path, which makes perfect sense to me. So Protoss having detection issues should no longer be an issue. Now, the Oracle, the Time Warp ability has been moved to the Mothership Core and the Mothership. All right. That makes sense to me. The Time Warp ability was much more of a debuff spell, moving it to the Mothership Core, and the Mothership gives the Mothership a little bit more reason to be used, since it is a much more army-focused unit. The Oracle was more of a harassment type unit, or perhaps a fast detector, which is how it's going to be used now. But it wasn't really meant to be used with your army, so Time Warp didn't make that much sense. Time Warp now being alongside the Mothership Core and the Mothership, who like to TP, scroll a town portal, recall back home when things get a little bit too bad. I love that play. I think it really rounds out the Mothership and the Mothership Core. I'm just going to say it right now, Time Warp is going to be an ability that I am going to hate, but I do love this change for the overall balance. Now, going back, fungal damage decreased from 30 plus 10 versus armor to flat out 30. I had forgotten that that fungal growth did 20 or a little bit bonus damage to armored. So that's going to be important to note. Mutalisk regeneration, passive ability renamed Tissue Regeneration, and its tooltip updated to improve clarity. So Mutalisks had faster regeneration just because Mutalisks are meant for that harassment type unit, similar to the Reaper. Now, anytime you have a harassment unit that is low on hit points, that it pretty much makes that harassment unit very, very useless until it is able to regenerate those hit points quickly. Queen Transfusion could work, but unless you have an army of queens on the field, which you don't normally want to have, those Mutalisks were not going to be able to get back into the fray that much after taking maybe 1 or even 2 rounds of a Thor attack. That does cause some problems. I will be playing some Heart of the Swarm today. Hopefully doing a little bit of a live stream. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope to see you guys on Battle.net.